Welcome, everyone, to another episode here at Not in Hall of Fame. Originally, I was going to say this is a specific episode where we're just looking at the Hockey Hall of Fame and doing a prediction show, but I'm throwing monkey wrenches again. And I think it's going to be it's episode 10 of Not In, All In, because I got a couple things I'm going to say. I'm Kirk Buchner along with Dave Whitlock and Chris Mouradian. Gentlemen, how are you?
We're doing good tonight.
Yeah, doing great. As we were talking a little bit of pre-show, it's a great time to be into sports. There's so many different sports going on and so much happening so quickly. There's even an NBA draft coming up, which we can talk about maybe on a future show. So,
No, absolutely. This is pretty much so going to be mostly on hockey. So if you're into hockey, this is a great episode for you. But I'm going to open up with, I'm going to touch on women's basketball really quick.
Be careful there.
I'm going to. Well, no, I'm not going to be careful, but I'm going to.
No, he's not, Chris.
Here's the caveat.
He said he's going to touch on it. I mean, it's, careful there.
The opinions reflected by what I'm about to say do not have anything to do with the Sportsman of the Week and Longhorn Dave or Chris Mouradian. These are purely my own opinions. Now, in the last Indiana Fever game, you may have noticed Caitlin Clark got the shit beat out of her again. This time, though, it was by two white women. Now, why do I bring race into it? I don't really want to, but let's be blunt. It's been an issue since she got there, discussed by a lot of all the other women around her, the media, everything, everybody. Caitlin Clark has become bigger than the league. Did she ask for it? I don't think so. Caitlin Clark is a unicorn in that she is a player that a lot of people can sort of empathize with. Basically, her style translates. She's female Steve Nash. Can shoot from deep, very fast, decent passer. Either way, or actually more like Steph Curry. Sorry, that's who I meant to say.
I would say more like Steph Curry.
Yeah,
I was thinking somebody who at the best of that particular element of their game.
Yeah, I think I had Steve Nash on my mind because I was coming up with a list of all the best players that I've seen live. I had the chance to hang out with our friend Ron Katz. He was here for a football game. Sorry, I'm getting everything wrong. He was here for a baseball game as he's right before he's doing a trip to Alaska. And I told him, you've been to so many things. I would love for you to come on the show and just do the 10 people the 10 biggest names you've seen live.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't even come close, but Steve Nash for me is somebody who I got to see live and would have been on my top 10.
And he's Canadian, so that fits right into your.
Yeah, well,
every episode I'm gonna give you a little Canadian bar.
It is true, but I mean, you can't take your eyes off him when he was in his prime. And
he was a great player. Yeah, no, absolutely great player, producer. It was fun to watch. Talented, skilled, all that stuff.
So Caitlin gets a lot of flack, and another thing also that you'd mentioned, Dave, because we were talking about how many Sportsmen of the Week you've had, and you said you're at 691. Caitlin's been there twice, never as a pro. And which is fair. Her pro game is she turns the ball over way too much. She's going to be probably a top 10 player this year. A lot of people might be watching this thing. She is right now. Yeah. By the end of the season, I think she will be. But women's basketball is something I enjoy watching for the very reason I love watching women's soccer. They don't dive and they play very physical. Maybe too physical because of the shit that's been happening to Caitlin Clark happened to, let's say, Steph Curry. How many ejections would there be? A lot more than what we've seen so far. Now, there was somebody who came out, I forget who the writer was, doesn't really matter, who said, well, I don't know what the right-wing people are going to do now that she got beat up by two white girls. And if you saw the play, and I don't know if you did, Dave, I think you did because you already knew where I was going with that.
Right.
Chris, did you?
I saw replays this morning on the X machine.
Okay. Yeah. So long story short, she got poked in the eye, sort of beefed up about it. And then somebody came in, knocked her down. Here's what I told Evan, and he didn't agree with me, but I'm going to say it here. And again, Don't care. I know I'm right. The biggest problem the WNBA has is women. Not that they're in the league. Women hold back other women. This is your golden goose. This is the person who's going to make you a lot more money. Should we just get Marty McSorley out of retirement, put him in a wig, and just sort of like have him do what he used to do for Gretzky? We can't do Dave Semenko. I think he's dead. But women do not support other women.
I won't categorically agree with that overall statement, but I will say that they are botching this opportunity. They're the way that the game's been played, white girls, black girls, it doesn't matter. Like, they need to embrace this and lean into it. Like, let's just say Major League Baseball has leaned into Shohei Ohtani. There's things about Ohtani. He's not an American. He's a Japanese import. He had a little gambling snafu that we can have a whole show on, but they need to lean into her popularity all while spreading the love. If you put too many chips on one square of the roulette board, I think Paige Buchner is another great player. So if you're saying, oh, it's only because Caitlin Clark's white, well, Paige Buchner is white. Why are they need to? There's a little too much emphasis on the one player. I would agree. But to your point, they are not, because of some of the things that we're seeing on the court and in some of the media comments by other players and coaches, they need to figure out a way to get along better. And it's not happening yet. The sport is exploding. It's in popularity. They're filling up arenas. For the love of what's good and decent, please, like, let this play out. Like you said, if they foul her too hard, put some stiff penalties in place and it'll stop happening. But just read today, no penalties, all good.
They're afraid to do it because then it'll look like they're protecting the white girl. And guys, everyone watching, I know it's three middle-aged white people having this discussion on race. I don't like having this discussion, but I also like calling it the way it is. And you don't see this in other sports. When Gretzky was sort of the man, it was pretty much understood. If you sort of like go after him, you're going to get something's going to happen to you, because he's the one sort of like elevating this whole game. What's the saying? A rising tide raises all ships.
That's right. It's a big expression of mine.
Right. When Tiger Woods became the biggest thing in golf, how many more people got a much bigger house because the purses went up?
Mm-hmm.
And it's still in effect today. There's a lot of people who I guess really the generation after Tiger, who enjoy those big fatter checks a lot because of Tiger. No doubt in my mind over that. But this is the only sport, and maybe the only women's sport, where I've sort of seen this sort of happen. I mean, I don't see everyone all mad at Simone Biles.
Well, there's a whole different thread with her and
there
transgender
is,
sports, but that's a different discussion. Well,
yeah, that's a different discussion for a different time. But I don't hear other gymnasts saying what an awful person she is. How come all the attention goes to her? You don't see this in women's tennis.
Yeah. Serena was a popular player across the globe. She was African American, and it didn't seem to be like people were out to get her because of one race or another.
No,
or her counterparts, Annika Kournikova and Monica Seles, and some of the ones that predated her. So,
no, she spoke her mind, but the people who liked her loved her, and that was a lot of people. So she
raised the purses for all the people that were after her too. There's right now
and during. So you didn't hear any of that. Now, maybe because this is a contact sport and it's a little bit different. But then I think of mixed martial arts, it's not like that either. When Ronda Rousey sort of emerged to the top, there were, and for a brief period of time, she made more money than any of the guys.
Yeah.
I think for like about a year and a half. Now, I think there was a little bit of jealousy from some of the other women, because when she got exposed bad. But that's more of an internal thing in terms of her overall ability and whatnot as a fighter. this is unprecedented to me. I'm sure this has happened before in either men's or women's sports. This is a first. And this is the ticket. I'm sorry to some of the other WNBA players that it's not you. I don't mean that sarcastically. Asia Wilson, it should have been you. You should be a much bigger name than you are. You should be in, I know you have a Nike deal, but it shouldn't have taken Caitlin Clark's arrival for you to get one. I think I've got my timeline right on that. I might not, but I'm pretty sure that I do. And it sucks that it happened after. And when you show a bit of bitterness on it, I don't blame you one bit. Not one bit. And there's a couple other players I could sort of put there, but the rest of you, it was never going to be you. It was never going to be you who was going to like elevate that tide. It just wasn't. Because if it would have been, it would have happened already. Sorry. So women support women. There you go. There's my PSA for you.
Nothing wrong about that.
See, I don't know where you guys thought I was going to go.
No, what you said made sense, and I obviously responded with thoughts that mostly aligned with yours. It's unfortunate that sometimes things become along racial lines, but I almost don't see it as much as that as one singular person.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
regardless of race. Like I said, there's other on both races that could have been better. It's unfortunate that other basketball players didn't get the recognition. So let's reset and look and make the sport popular for all people and stop this literal infighting during games that's detracting from the talent that's on the floor, which is impeccable.
Yeah, and I'm not saying don't stop being physical. It's part of the thing I love about this game, because there's no flopping.
Yeah, that's great. No, I love there's just like videos of like the WNBA players taking right crosses to the face and still going up, and then you watch LeBron get breathed on and he falls down, as if he was maimed. They are absolute great athletes, tough, and they play the sport really the right way until they cross the line that we're talking about.
I enjoy not so much the pageantry, but I enjoy the actual game more of the Women's World Cup than the Men's World Cup, because there's not going to be some Italian. Usually it's Italian. Sorry, Italians. It's you.
Now you're really getting into racism, but that's okay.
Sure. But it's always going to go. You can't see me sort of holding my leg, but actually, hold on. Maybe Winnie can demonstrate. Winnie, like, oh, my leg. Oh, I'm down on the floor. Oh, I'm hurt. And just kidding, I'm back. Did I get a foul?
Smile.
So, yeah. And that's the part that just drives me mental every time I get into a soccer game, because it happens every time, drives me insane. And women don't do that. And as someone who used to play at Temple told me, I asked her that. I said, like, how can you flop and do any of that? And she said, because we don't want you guys thinking that we're pussies. End quote.
So about time to move on to hockey, Kirk.
I try not to be too controversial, but I have to always say it like it is. Since Howard Cosell's since left us, there's only one person left to tell it like it is. Let's congratulate the Florida Panthers, and we'll tell it like it is. Guys, it kind of went, I think, the way we all thought it would. Florida was the better team top to bottom, and if Edmonton was going to pull it out, Skinner was going to have the series of his life, and he did not.
Yeah, same old story with Edmonton there. You think back to last year, defense and goaltending kind of let him down. This year, defense, goaltending kind of let him down. Offense went away last night, obviously, but you're chasing a 3-0 deficit early on. You're kind of it kind of reminded me a lot of 2011 there, which kind of hits close to home for me. But it was the better team won, the more rounded team won. Maybe not necessarily a more talented team when you think about the players that Edmonton has, especially on the front. But Yeah, 6 games, couple, each team won in the other team's barn there, but at the end of the day, it was Florida's cup to lose, and they didn't lose it.
Also to city of Miami, kudos. You've turned into a beautiful hockey town, as has Tampa, as has
Raleigh,
Raleigh, Nashville,
Dallas.
Dallas. Phoenix could have been, but that's a story for another time. That was due to an arena shift. I mean, I still think that can work in Phoenix. I really do. But I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again. If you would have told 20-year-old Kirk that 3 of the last 4 champions, and when you're 52, would be from a Florida-based team, and it wouldn't bother you because the fans are good, I obviously I wouldn't have believed it.
Yeah, I'll say, yeah, from the fan perspective, it's been a surprise to me that the baseball fans in Florida and Tampa have not historically supported their team. Florida's had a couple of championships associated with, getting the right talent in for a very short period of time. But Tampa apparently maybe sold, moved to maybe or maybe not moved to another place, but it is like you said, you could have put these games that we saw in quote historical hockey towns like Philadelphia, Detroit, Chicago, New York, and the fan interest and the engagement and the cheering was as good as you could see. I think sometimes they think that ratings will suffer if you don't have those classic teams in there, and that may prove to be true, but from when the 3 of us watched, because we're hockey fans, it was intense fans. It was intense action. The fans were into it. They lived and died by every play, every penalty. They were all chanting the other goalie's name, to taunt them. They were booing the refs. Everything was right in the world of hockey, and the best team won. I mean, Florida, clearly had the best chemistry, the best team. To me, a little bit better coached, a little bit better assembled. Edmonton has talent, but they haven't figured out how to pull it together. So you hope for their sake that they figure out a way to augment their current talent with some better either role players or coaching or schemes. But absolutely, Florida had all the blowouts, all the close games, a couple close games that Draisaitl got some overtime goals went to Edmonton's way, but it wasn't even as close as the 6-game series would indicate.
Prediction: McDavid's going to get out when he can.
I wouldn't blame him. Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be there when he's 30. Not because he doesn't want to play for Edmonton. It's just,
No.
I think at this point, what more can he do? What more can he do unless Edmonton goes out and gets a much better goalie? And you kind of saw it on the players' faces. I think when Skinner let in that soft goal that made it 3-0,
Yeah.
and at that point, and I think they were just gassed at this point. The tank went to empty.
They seem to be overplaying some of their big players in shifts as well for good reason in a key game, in an elimination game. But yeah, that stand-up goal that he allowed was almost laughable.
Yeah, it was. That's going to haunt him probably for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and probably a lot of his teammates too, for that matter. And I don't begrudge them for putting him back, and did I have a problem with that? Ron and I were debating that when we were out the other night, because I told him that they're going to go back to they're going to go to Pickard, and I thought that was the right call because Skinner shit the bed in the game before.
Yeah.
Pickard was only replaced because of injury. That I would have made that same move. Of course, I'm not an NHL GM coach, whatever, but I mean, like, I don't begrudge that, so I'm not going to play Monday morning quarterback because I don't think it would have mattered at this point.
This is far from a goalie issue. It was a team chemistry issue.
Yeah, but congratulations, Florida. You've earned it. And I hope Miami knows what it has. I think also, too, if we could go back in a time machine, because when I was a kid, and I think we're all around the same age, right? So when I was a kid, if I thought of a major team in sports in Florida, I'm thinking of the Miami Dolphins. Since that time, and I was infants. I guess we were all infants when the Dolphins last won a Super Bowl.
Yep.
You go back to anyone who would have been our age now and said, okay, well, if you make it to 100, you'll see another Super Bowl winner in Florida. Oh, that's great. Oh, no. In Tampa, what? They don't have a team. Yeah, okay, but you know, like you're gonna get 2 Stanley Cups. Wait, what? We don't have a team. Well, you know, also too, Tampa's gonna win too.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, you're gonna win 3 NBA titles. What? Oh, and Florida State will be good at one point, and Miami will be good, and so will Florida. Because it actually wasn't Florida State awful for the longest time. You're the college.
They were until Bowden, and then they were always the bridesmaid. But I think editors note maybe Central Florida has the last natural claimed national championship in college, whether you believe Central Florida won that or not.
I will say that I do not.
Yeah, they were undefeated, but they didn't get invited to the playoffs.
Yeah, so was I. I didn't lose it in that season either. But the main thing that we want to talk about is the Hockey Hall of Fame. And on the 24th of this month of June, there's going to be 18 individuals who are going to gather, and they will decide that day and let us know who is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I thought it would be really important for us to actually tell everybody who those 18 people are, because I asked us all to sort of make a prediction, and I'm not going by what I would want. I'm going by what I think this group might do. So this is chaired by Ron Francis, Hockey Hall of Famer. And there's 3 other Canadian male players. I kind of divided this by nationality because I think they're thinking more along those terms. I could be mistaken on that, but we'll see. Joining Francis is Jarome Iginla, Luc Robitaille, and Joe Sakic. So 4 recent Hall of Famers, 4 people that we all remember very well. There's 1 Canadian woman, Cassie Campbell-Pascal, another phenomenal player. There's only 1 American men's player, and I find this one a little interesting only because he's not in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Eddie Olczyk. So
Probably something to do with the fact he's in media.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. There are other media people, so I don't have a problem with it. I just found it a little interesting.
Yeah.
And he played with some really good players, of course, 94 Rangers and some before that. So
a lot of good years with the Leafs.
Yep.
Someone near and dear to the heart of Chris and myself, Cammy Granato. We say that because we might be influential people in the United States Athletic Hall of Fame, but none of the other people we do this with agree with us, and she's not been a nominee yet. Dave,
we're gonna keep
we blame that too, by the way.
All right, seed planted. I will review closely.
Yeah.
It's always such stiff competition in the USA Hall of Fame. It's
Yes.
hard to pick the Earl Campbells and the Jimmy Foxes and the Walter Johnsons against everybody, but
yeah,
fair enough.
Oh, shameless plug. And you can vote on that right now at www.theusahof.com, where you'll help decide the 3rd class of the United States Athletic Hall of Fame. We decide who's put forth, but all your votes are
The final.
It's all up to you.
Yep.
My vote is worth the same as yours. They've got 3 international former players here. Anders Hedberg, another one who I could put in that Ed Olczyk thing. Hedberg, for those who are not aware, he was one of the first Swedish players to come into North American hockey, mostly with the Winnipeg Jets, then of the WHA. Yeah, and actually, he to me is also he's a fringe Hockey Hall of Famer based on what he actually did and sort of changing the narrative on European hockey. The other 2 are certainly legends in their own right. Jari Kurri, so we have someone representing Finland, and Igor Larionov, which I could be wrong on this, but I think this might be the first Russian who's
Soviet, depending upon their date of birth.
Yeah, you'd have been Soviet back then.
Well, no, Russian on this committee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I don't think there's ever been a former. I can definitely be corrected on that, but I don't believe so. This is rounded out with 4 executives and 4 people in media. So the execs, Brian Burke, Stanley Cup winner with the Anaheim, and currently he runs, he's the executive director of the PWHL. If you haven't watched some women's hockey, it's only on YouTube. Watch it. It's a lot better than it used to be in terms of league play. No, it was crap. It's crap. It's the depth of Team Canada and Team USA in women's sport, in women's hockey. You could put 3 Canadian teams and 3 American teams, and they'd finish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I honestly believe that, because the rest of the world just doesn't catch up for whatever reason. Mark Chipman, he's actually the head of the board of directors for True North Sports, which owns the Winnipeg Jets. I think this is the first time he's on this. David Poyle, the GM of Nashville, the only GM that they've ever had. Mike Murphy, who is currently the NHL senior VP. And in media, some big names. Mark Defoe, he covers hockey in Montreal. Scott Morrison for the Toronto Sun. And 2 bigger names nationally, Pierre Maguire and Bob McKenzie. So I don't think there should be any problem with the group that they have. But here's also how they get what they're going to be voting on. They can vote on 4 male inductees maximum, 2 female inductees maximum, 2 builders if they don't induct a referee or a linesman. I'm not going to talk about the builders or the refs unless you guys want to. No? Okay.
No.
All right. Sorry for those who were sort of hoping to talk about the builders.
Different show on a different channel.
We'll do more homework next year.
Yes, actually, we'll have Vinny Lospinoso to do those ones. He loves the contributors. That's not a shot on you, Vin. We just know what your wheelhouse is, and it's that. So this is what I was still trying to figure out, and how this exactly works, and I'm still not completely sure. From what I understand from reading on their bylaws, each one of these selectors can make 1 nominee, only 1, which seems strange to me, because it doesn't specify whether you can only make 1 man or 1 female or 1 of both. It seems the way it's written that it just says only 1. Now there's only 18 people there, so like I know that if I wanted to play something kind of 3D chess, right, or 4D chess and whatnot, I'd be thinking somebody who would want to be talked about in that room, but I don't know whether he'd get there or not, like a PK Subban, who is an interesting contender because you've got 3 former Norris Trophy vote winners who are entering the ballot for the first time. PK arguably would be sort of the 3rd person behind Duncan Keith and Zdeno Chara, depending on your point of view. Some might put PK higher. I don't know, and I'd like to hear that. But if there's only 18 going through, you could see a name like PK Subban not even get talked about in that room, potentially, or a Carey Price. But then they've got sort of this backup thing where you can do a public submission, which I don't think a lot of people know about. But that will get filtered out through the board of directors. So my guess is that's sort of your back way of getting some people maybe in that room that you wouldn't normally get when you have 18. I don't know. I mean, like, maybe that's another reason why you're looking at mixing this stuff up, why you have people from different countries, why you've got 2 women there, why you've got executives with completely different backgrounds and writers and journalists. I don't know about so much different. I'm sure they're all in the same circle, but it's an interesting way to do it. And it's also hidden very much because they can keep doing a ballot because it's a secret ballot. So they say, I'm sure within they will talk about that, but it's also in their bylaws that they can't talk about it. So Chris has been able to get us interview with Clark Judge, which is a lot of fun. So Chris, don't even bother trying to get any of these guys to talk about it. They won't.
All right. No, I'll work a different angle. I'll see what I can figure out here.
Yeah. So yeah, because they're not allowed to talk about any of it. I imagine they're not in the room that long. They just do a ballot. I think they just keep doing ballots because it's very ambiguous after that. I think they just do ballots until they get 75%. So that's how it works. And from there, I've got 6 people who I've predicted. And I don't know who we want to sort of go. Dave, I don't know if you want to start, or Chris, if you want to start.
I'll let Chris start. I'm not as big of a hockey historical fan. I watch teams, but I couldn't tell you, like you mentioned, 3 defensemen,
Mhm.
which I remember Zdeno Chara was excellent in defense. I remember Duncan Keith on some really good teams. And PK Subban certainly, brought a very good defenseman game. But if you're asking me to like who those 3 are the best, I would the
We'll
filter.
react to
So,
what we do then.
yeah, exactly. So Chris, please lead me.
Chris,
Sure.
who's the number 1?
So number one for me is Daniel Chara. Um, I think just the overall the hell's the word I'm trying to figure out here?
Body of work or
There you go. Thank you. The overall body work. I mean, um, Stanley Cups, captain of the one of the original 6 teams, the Bruins. He's got Norris. He's got Messier trophies. He was just a bigger than life, maybe a little bit too much, but on the ice, his presence was because of his size. He always stood out. I think that's what happens here as well. I think the the body of work, as Dave probably reminded me of the term, um, really speaks for itself. And when I'm looking at this potential ballot, potential list of nominees, he's jumps out to me as the first
Okay.
what I think is a slam dunk.
across the defensemen and forwards and everybody? Just to be
Yes.
clear, because I was just talking about defensemen earlier, but you're saying best
Yeah.
player
He's
number 1. That's good.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to go on record. Out of all the people who are eligible for the first time, if I were to start a hockey team based on what I knew they were capable of, obviously, hindsight being 2020, of course, and there's some big names on this. Chara's the person I build my team around. He's my first pick out of all of them. But I did not select him as who I think they're going to pick. So
Okay.
Chara's not on my list. I hope I lose this one. I know we don't have a friendly wager on this one because he is my favorite player out of all of this. But again, I'm going by what I think they're going to do.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
for me, this one I have as a slam dunk is Joe Thornton.
Mhm.
Former Hart winner, former Art Ross winner, has by far the most points of anyone eligible. Didn't win a Stanley Cup, but he wasn't exactly blessed with. He took San Jose as far as he possibly could. So does have the international accolades. I can't see how he doesn't get in right away. But yeah, that is someone who I actually have listed number 1 on Not in Hall of Fame Hockey. Again, not my favorite guy because I always try, not because I have anything against Joe Thornton. I'm a huge, huge fan of Chara. I got to see him live in Ottawa back in the day when I was living there. And like Chris said, you can't miss him. Larger than life. He's 6'9".
Yeah.
7 feet on skates.
Yeah.
And Joe Thornton was a big guy, and he filled all the body. He was a team leader. He scored goals, assists. Was always head of the top line. When I looked through the link that you sent with the candidates, he jumped out to me again. It's not as big of a down in hockey fan as you guys, but certainly seems like a bigger than life guy. And like you said, if he doesn't get in the first ballot, it won't be long.
Yeah, he's actually my number 3 in my list.
Do you want to do your number 2 or?
Yeah. So who is number 2, Chris?
Yeah, well, I'll circle back to number 2 here, but my piece on Joe Thornton here is he was just the one of the best players forwards that we got to see during his time. Just showed up every day, did his job, scored goals, did everything he could to lead his team to a cup. Just didn't quite get there. I hope they don't hold that against him because it's a team sport, and he did everything that he could as a teammate to get his team there. But my number 2 actually is Duncan Keith. I think
Same.
yeah, so he was it top 75 or top 100? He's one of those top lists. He
top
was
100. Yeah, he made the
so
top 100. Yeah.
so he's on the top 100 list of all time players. Okay, that's pretty much a ringing endorsement right there. But then you throw in the the Stanley Cup championships with the Blackhawks teams there. He has the Norris Trophy, Conn Smythe from one of their cup runs. Just a gritty all around tough player to play against, a leader on the Blackhawks team. Not the most liked player in Vancouver from their rivalry with the Blackhawks, but undoubtedly one of the most talented players that Chicago had during their run there, and one of the reasons why they did win 3 Stanley Cups. So he was my number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I also have him there. He's got the international accomplishments. And unlike Chara, because Keith is on that 100 team, Chara's not.
Yeah.
So that also sort of played a bit of a factor for me to go that way. Again, I think you and I are both in agreement. We both, I think, value Zdeno higher than any other defenseman. Fair to say. Obviously, you got him number 1. And I have him number 1 personally. I just don't think they're going to do that. I could be wrong. Maybe I also I might be partially biased because there's no check on this on this committee.
So are you worried that the checks are going to be overlooked, Kirk?
I think that certain people. No, I don't mean that as a joker. I think you're going to have some people there who will have advocates that they may not normally have, which is sort of like why I looked a lot deeper into who's on this. So I don't think it's I guess it is a secret because they can't talk about it, but there's no doubt in my mind that Laney McDonald got Mike Vernon inducted. There's no doubt in my mind. And Mike Vernon was a very, very good goalie.
Yeah. Not the first. It happens in the Baseball Hall of Fame too, with some of the veterans committees.
Harold Baines. But yeah.
Who knows who and who coached who, but at the end of the day, the Hall of Fames are pretty pristine. They get the right people in.
Yeah, generally, but I mean, this is actually, you could argue, inspired by what Baines did. When Baines was on that veteran category, I don't think any of us thought he was going to get in. And I think we all thought, here's somebody, well, I'll tell you what I thought. I think we've all discussed this already. Harold Baines is, if I had him as my DH for 10 years, even 15, because he was so consistent, I'd be happier than a pig in shit.
Yeah.
But was he always the best DH? No, he was usually number 3, number 4, which is great. Like you can do a lot with that. But when we looked at the ballot after, there were all these people who knew him, knew what a great guy he was. And, Chris mentioned it earlier, the Mark Messier Award, it's a leadership award. It's probably my favorite new award in all the Big Four sports. This might have been something that I wish that existed, like right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Anze Kopitar, who I think we all might like and think is a Hockey Hall of Famer. Yeah, winning that other Lady Bing trophy, that's going to do everything for you. As I joke with Evan all the time, yeah, that's the only trophy you wouldn't put on your Tinder profile.
Well, if they just call it the Bing Trophy instead of Lady Bing, I think we probably wouldn't be so bad.
Donated by Bing. It was donated by Lady Bing.
Has to be the Lady Bing, the sportsmanship.
There was an owner, I can't remember if it was Chicago or Detroit, back in the 50s. One of his players won it, and then that made the owner want to trade him.
It's like, clearly not the type of person we want on our team. Way too sportsmanlike.
Oh shit! Yeah. So basically, if that person read your blog in the 50s, it's not the Sportsman of the Week, but sportsmanship.
Yeah, right. I will say, the Sportsman or Sportswoman of the Week is not heavily selected upon gentlemanly play, as I think is in that description.
But yeah, Keith is someone who I think they're going to go with. I have him as their top defenseman, not necessarily mine, but I would love for Chara to get one of the 2 spots that I'm going to talk about later. Actually, I guess I'll go next because you.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? Yeah.
Okay. So this is just a hunch because Larionov is here, and I'm going with Alexander Mogilny.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah. I think I've been doing the site for about 10, 11 years. The first thing I did was write up on rock and roll. And the second one I did was in hockey. Mogilny was there back then. I can't remember what rank, but he's been floating up and down between 1 and 7, depending on how deep it was. I know one time he was at 1. He's dropped down quite a bit because we've got some heavyweights with Thornton, Keith, Chara, forgetting another one, but
Carey Price.
Yeah, Carey Price is below him. I think I have him at 50, but he's a guy who you can't ignore, and I don't care what era it was, a 73 goal season. Injury sort of got to him later, but he was a great international star. I think if he already had 500 goals, he'd have been in. But we also talked about before, God, I hate talking about this too. Politics. It's not always the best for a Russian at certain times. And I think it sort of hurts. A few years ago, when the Russians invaded Ukraine, and we even see remnants of that, like in the Four Nations. I mean, I think it would have been really fun to see Russia in there, but either way, they weren't. That's neither here nor there. But they're not exactly the most favored team right now. But then remember when Ovechkin broke Gretzky's record, you got all these things done by all these people. One of them was LeBron James. I'm pretty sure that LeBron and Ovechkin aren't voting the same way. Of course, I don't think they can vote in the same country, whatever. It was still one of those things where people were separating the athlete from the nation, which you always should. And if you've got a Russian on this committee, I think maybe you've got somebody who's going to advocate for someone who a lot of fans, not just from Russia, a lot of Buffalo fans, they want this guy in. And he probably should have been. I think this could help. I think also, too, it doesn't hurt them to leave a couple heavyweights behind.
Yeah, that way they don't have to start paring down the number of years they have to wait to get players eligible for the ballot, like certain leagues do.
They're already at 3, but they've always been at 3.
They have, yes. So.
And I guess that helps when you start. And when did they start? 43? No, before World War II.
Yeah.
Before or right after World War II. I don't remember exactly. But yeah. Oh, interesting trivia question. Where was the original Hockey Hall of Fame supposed to be? Or where was it initially?
I have no idea.
I say New York.
Right. Kingston, Ontario, Canada. I realize that neither of you even know what that city is. So
it's a suburb of Toronto.
It is not a suburb of Toronto.
I think you just made it up.
Everything in Ontario is a suburb of Toronto.
Right.
It is also the home of our first prime minister, whose name is escaping me. William Lyon Mackenzie King, or is that somebody else? Whatever. He didn't do anything.
Yeah, sure, it was a failed administration.
I like where your mind's at, Kirk.
I'm glad you do. I've just sort of like been stumbling over everything. And this is only my first beer, I swear.
I've been an advocate for Mogilny for many years, since I kind of started really getting into and following the Hall of Fame selection process and things like that. The thing that gets overlooked with Mogilny, because everybody goes to the numbers, like you said, just under 500 goals and over 1,000 points in less than 1,000 games, the international accolades, everything else like that. But his defection is what really forced the door open for Russia to have to let their players.
That's true too. Yeah.
Have the opportunity to join the NHL. It was everything. If you've read the stories or seen the little YouTube clips, it is right out of a spy novel. With smuggling them out of the hotel and getting the passports and the planes all lined up, and what he knowingly left behind to leave Russia and come to America. I think he might have gone to Buffalo there, but with his family, he had to leave his family behind, and not knowing what the Soviet government would have or could have done with them. So to me, that's an overarching, when you think about a Hall of Famer, somebody that goes above and beyond and changes the game. He went and he changed the game. because of him, we got the Bure, the Fedorovs, the Russians that came over in the early 90s there. Yeah. And now, we have Ovechkin and, Russians that come over every year and are top draft picks and are coming over at a younger age and playing in the juniors now in Canada and things like that. So on top of all the on ice accomplishments, the off ice stuff to me is as, if not more important to Mogilny's candidacy.
And Chris, where did you have him on? Some sort of list that you're talking about, 1 through whatever?
So last year he was in my top 4. This year I didn't have him in there because I felt more strongly about Carey Price. But no, I also didn't know about Larionov being one of the members too. So right. So Kirk's bringing that up and then kind of pointing that out. It kind of makes me rethink it. He should have been there 10, 15 years ago. And the fact that he's not just kind of makes me wonder if they're just ever going to open the door for him. And against a class, a first year class like this, I think it's tougher than it was last year. But hey, I'll hold out hope, and knowing that he's there and more than deserving, and like you said, most likely has an advocate in Larionov there.
So did you have him as your 4 that you were gonna?
No, Carey
So
Price.
1 left, and I got 1 left then.
Yeah, Carey Price. They've been going. Yeah, they've been recognizing the goaltenders lately. We had the Barrasso Vernon class not too long ago. Carey Price is, until the injuries took him out, was just one of the best goaltenders in the league for so many years. And my thinking, like I said, is just that the goaltenders are starting to get the love that they kind of missed there for a while. And because of that, I think he's going to be the fourth one over Ryan Getzlaf and any of the other first year candidates or holdovers.
Very few people who've won the Hart Trophy have ever not gotten in. I think there's I used to know this off the top of my head. I think there's only a few, 2 of which I believe were in World War II when the league was depleted.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think MLB was depleted? You should imagine the NHL when there was the only players who were any good were Canadian, and we started the war first. We were in the war for years, waiting for you guys to help out.
Amen, man. Canada, leave down. No lies detected. You guys brought us into it, but certainly were.
Oh, we were just keeping it warm because we were saying that Normandy beach.
Yeah.
I think we need some Yankee Doodle dandies to help us out with that one.
A little bit of help. A
little bit of help. Were Canadians even part of that? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Really?
They were.
Well, look at Chris teaching me Canadian history. I love it. Also, too, when I was stumbling over, who the hell was our first prime minister?
George Washington. Oh, wait, no, that's ours.
I was going to say King George III, but I probably missed that one too.
Well, I mean, we still have the Queen on our money, so I'll leave it at that.
Didn't she die a couple years ago?
Well, yeah, but you can still, the picture still exists.
Yeah, and she was kind of a fun.
We gotta put like a tombstone on her $5 bills now.
Yeah, she was a fun queen though. She had fun with the role and did spread a lot of joy throughout the world.
You're the first person to use Queen Elizabeth and fun in the same sentence, I think.
She was a party girl, man.
Yeah.
She was photobombing kids taking pictures. She went and showed.
Thinking of Diana.
No, I'm thinking of the Queen. She was invited to a wedding and showed up, basically unannounced.
I have a funny video I'll send you guys offline. Yeah, that she has a really good sense of humor. She meets people on the street and would play with them.
Okay, I was not aware of that. Again, I should know this is part of the Commonwealth.
You have to spend more time
on
Twitter.
Subjects, Kirk. I'm very disappointed.
My dad used to say, all right, hold on. Every time I mention my dad, I gotta bear up to the sky. He used to say that because we have a governor general. Do you guys know what that is?
No clue.
Sounds made up.
Yeah. It's like Speaker of the House.
No, the Speaker of the House actually does something.
President
governor
pro temp.
the governor general, their role is to be the liaison to the crown.
Okay.
Technically, it actually holds higher power than the prime minister, although that's never been a fact. Whereas my dad used to say, it's the person who decides what color napkins to do when the queen decides to show up here and fart.
Right. Yeah. So there's a representative of the crown in the country, and they are a delegate of that person. So they're governor by proxy.
It's like one of those massive wastes of money. The Toronto Star did something 10 years ago. I imagine it's much more now, where they figured out that it costs the country 32 million a year.
Yeah.
Just in staff and whatnot. And when I was living in Barbados, they actually ditched the governor general. They said that we're not part of the Commonwealth anymore.
Threw them out among the sharks.
Well, no, because 90% their whole revenue is tourism, and 90% of that comes from England. But I guess they figured, and correctly, that British people aren't going to give a crap. They're still going to come there because they're welcome. It's just, hey, come here, we like you. We're just not going to be your subjects anymore. Okay.
Now, we fixed all this in 1776. Like we're a couple 250 years ahead.
Well, yes. Well, we didn't have to fight. We just said, hey, can we be a country? And it's like, all right.
Yeah.
All you got to do is like, whenever we get into a war, you're going to help out too. Yeah, but you're not going to do any wars, right? No. No problem. To do shit. We're not going to do shit. So we didn't know any better. It's like, oh, all right, fine, and we'll do that, and you'll protect us, right? Like, oh yeah. No one's ever invaded us yet.
No. Back to hockey. Kirk, so is Carey Price your number one goalie? Is your second goalie?
Oh, actually, Mike Richter is my number one goalie, but I don't have him as my four. Okay. Mike Richter to me is my most wanted goalie. I base that on a Stanley Cup performance with the Rangers in '94 and his incredible performance in the World Cup of Hockey in 1996.
And his college career at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
That's also true. And I'm going to be talking a bit of college when I mention the two other people I have after this. But my number four, and I didn't go with the goalie at all, and this is actually Chris inspired, because he's one of your elevator ups. You know where I'm going with this.
Maybe.
Yeah.
His son just added some more finger jewelry.
No, I'm really confused.
Matt Tkachuk. Which Tkachuk are we talking about?
Keith. All right, there we go. Yeah.
Just I'm repeating what you said on one of our elevator shows. Here's a guy whose profile is being raised, and people are remembering, hey, this guy scored 500 goals.
Because of his little progeny.
Yeah. He scored 500 goals. They're mentioning on TV how he should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, during the Four Nations, he got almost as much screen time as his kids did.
And got more during the Stanley Cup. People are starting to remember that this guy was really good, and he is American. And you've got a lot of American representation on this committee. So I'm going strategic here. And I think he definitely belongs. I mean, for a long time, the guy who might have been holding him back, if they're thinking nationally, and I don't know whether they are or not, would have been Jeremy Roenick. They finally took care of that years later. Okay, we're done punishing you because you had an opinion. Actually, maybe that helps Don Cherry more than anybody else, but we're not talking builders today.
A whole different show on a different day.
I did a whole deep dive on that with Vinny. Vinny did a whole case for Don Cherry, and we talked about the good and the bad. We went through every one of his scandals, which I remember him in real time.
A long list.
It's a long list, but I think what finally did him in was, you probably don't actually aren't aware of this. So, you know what Hockey Night in Canada is?
Yeah.
Okay.
TSN.
Well, okay, but it didn't used to be.
No, CBC, wasn't it?
Exactly. So CBC, one of the big things, every Saturday night, you're watching Hockey Night in Canada, and it was big. And then when it was a big deal, my dad wasn't even a sports fan. He would watch Hockey Night in Canada, right? Because it'd either be the Habs or the Leafs. And then I always remember this would be a double header. It'd be the Leafs at home against whomever, and then you're going to go to the West, where it's usually Edmonton versus somebody, or it might be Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg. whichever. And I don't know how this transpired, but either the rights or they just got outbid, probably through Bettman or something, where they wanted to make some money, and it went to TSN. And Canadians were flipping out. I mean, this was like I don't know. Come up with a good allegory, guys, or a simile, metaphor.
Like NASCAR going to TNT and Amazon Prime instead of primary channels. That's a loose.
Yeah,
And I should have had one in my head. I wasn't prepared to talk about Don Cherry. Obviously not, because I used 3 different things: simile, metaphor, and analogy, when I only needed to do one of those 3. But anywho, long story short, Canada went apeshit. So TSN overreacted. They signed Ron McLean and Don Cherry, paid a lot of money for the theme song. Dun da 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 da. Because like, oh my God, we can't not have that.
Right.
So you get those guys, and I think what people sort of forgot, or people weren't thinking about, it's easy to pay Don Cherry a lot of money when technically we paid for it. CBC is part of, it's a Crown thing. It's state media or state owned. When you've got Don Cherry showing up for work maybe 2 minutes every Saturday, and he's becoming controversial, and you realize pretty quick, you know what, people are going to watch hockey anyway because we love hockey. It didn't take much to finally say, you know what, we've had enough. I think if he was still on CBC, he might still be carted out there. That's what I honestly believe. Seriously.
Yeah.
Still alive, 94. I think he's still mobile. I don't know.
It looks healthy. Yeah. Last I saw him wearing a crazy suit, et cetera, and so forth. No, it's an interesting perspective on how the network changed and the dynamics. I would just see him because the United States would pipe in coverage from those type of networks on one platform or another. And so he was always entertaining and educated fan, and brought color to the analysis, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, it was one of those things. He went, he did say something that I don't want to go there. I've already done the show with Vinny, if people want to check that out. But and I've been a long advocate of Don Cherry for the Hockey Hall of Fame because he is that important. Maybe not now to the generation coming up, but he was so big that they did a study on the Montreal broadcasts, right? The Quebec broadcasts. People would switch over just to hear what he would say, even if they didn't know English very well. Like over half of people would switch over waiting for him to talk. That is, there's no parallel. There's no equal to this in sports media. But I guess we're now looking at the women. I've got 2 women who I've picked who I think they're going to go with. Chris, I don't know if you've done any.
Yeah, no, I got 2 for you as well.
All right. I wonder if they're going to overlap, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, Jennifer Botterill. She's been there for the last several years as the most deserving candidate, and has been overlooked several years despite being the most deserving candidate. Eventually they got to get it right, and I think this year they get it right. What she meant to Canadian hockey for the girls teams, world championship titles, best player awards. Yeah. So she's done everything she needs to do to be inducted. The time is now. Just do it.
I called her a lock 2 years ago.
Yeah. And she was. And somebody picked the lock.
Pick the lock. Yeah, good way to describe it.
Yeah, well, they picked it and just threw it away. So
yeah,
that's who I think they're going to go with. I'm just going to keep picking her name until they get it right. Yeah. Who's your second? And I wonder if we've overlapped there too.
I'm going with an American this time, and I'm going with a little different. Monique Lamoureux Orondo.
I almost went there, but yeah.
Several strong American candidates. I think they're going to split it. I think they're going to go one Canadian, one American, and the World Championship titles is really what kind of looking at everything that's been done. She has the most eligible female hockey players. That sounds a little different. But
so right, she's eligible.
So that's where I ended up there with over Karen Dietz and Jenny Potter.
I went with Potter.
Okay.
Yeah, so pretty much same thing. We has everything, has a great college career, has the gold at the Olympics, has gold
World championships.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's the US Canada thing in international hockey, both men's and women's.
Yeah.
On paper, the US women should be a lot higher than they are. And because they're deeper, they've got some bigger stars when it comes right down to it. Canada just always seems to find a way to win those games. And
Yeah. It's the same with the men's team lately with that kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I went with Potter. I just went because of her longer tenure more than anything else.
Yeah, nothing wrong there. They're all very deserving candidates
Yeah,
that will get there at some point.
and we're at the point now where we can go with like 2 women a year. Like when they first did that, they were actually behind the times a bit because the United States Hockey Hall of Fame elected a woman before the Hockey Hall of Fame did. Yeah, that being, you want to say who?
Oh, Cammy.
Yeah, Cammy, yes.
Yeah.
And then Cammy, I believe, was the second person inducted. Obviously, the person they went with first. Well,
Organizer. Yeah.
Well, no, it was Angela James.
Oh.
Yeah, Haley Wickenheiser was, I think, the first, one of the biggest names.
Yeah.
But Angela James was the first, and obviously she's not going to get into the US Hall because she's not American.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the way this will go, neither of us will sweep. There'll be a surprise coming in somewhere because there always seems to be.
Yeah, they'll pull a Rod Brindamore out of their hat or something like that.
Wouldn't be the worst. I would Brindamore.
No, it just been he was one of mine last year, but
no, I mean I'm more tailoring it not to what I want, to what I
think.
I'm going by what I'm trying to gauge this committee and just see, like, all right, how fast do they want to get out in and out of there? Because I think they just want to like go for a beer right after. Most of them are Canadian, so I know that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, is it a Molson or a Budweiser or
a
German beer?
No, the worst thing I learned, you know what the number 1 beer in Canada in sales is?
Budweiser.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bud Light, actually.
Sadly.
You're welcome.
I apologize.
You didn't dump it all out earlier this year?
No, why would I do that?
Or would you dump it out the Jack Daniels and all the other American?
Oh no, not me. Oh yeah. That's a good. Well, no, because I don't think they would, because I believe most of that is still brewed in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they distribute or they move their production facilities conveniently, just like Toyota and some other companies in the United can be domestic.
Yeah, so it's all made in Canada.
Okay.
Like I remember driving by like on the 401, which is one of our big our version of an interstate going from Windsor to the border of Quebec, and there'd be a Japanese flag in one of the breweries. Like, what the hell? And it turned out that they were brewing Sapporo there. Because of course I had to go check out and ask why.
So driving down the freeway, was there more moose or grizzly bears in the way, or Mounties? This is just an American.
I'm in Ontario, but when I lived in the Rocky Mountains, I've seen all 3.
Okay.
Yeah. I have seen a moose on the road. I have seen grizzly bears on the road. Well, the brown bears. I have seen those. I've never seen a Mountie other than in a parade.
They look sharp, man. Those hats and red coats.
Doesn't seem all that practical, though, right?
No, absolutely not.
It's
you get it from the British. They got these tall hats and all this.
Oh, they were so stupid. No wonder you guys won the war in the Revolutionary War. They had the big red coat and a big X.
Yeah, they made themselves targets and wandered up in lines.
Straight lines.
In the bushes, the Minutemen just waiting to mow them down.
My God. I mean, like, they're not fighting honorably.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, that's pretty much all I got. I hope I didn't offend too many people out there.
There's always next week.
There's always next week. And there's always comments where you can tell me how much I suck. Kirk reads your comments.
Great.
Yeah, and we'll read them on the air next week if you like tag
There's
him.
enough. There hasn't been that many, although there's some on the site. So maybe I should
Yeah.
read people's comments on some of the actual articles that are up. I think this sort of brings us up to a close. Maybe next week we'll discuss. I don't know. Do we want to do a preview of the NBA draft? I don't know if that'd be my strength.
Yeah, same here. I'd
Not me.
struggle with
Yeah,
that.
no.
Well, something always comes up. Maybe Boston will do another dumb trade. I'm doing an interview with somebody who was friends with David Ortiz, and he used to be in the locker room with Barry Bonds, and so he's from the Dominican. He's got a lot that he wants to say about the Devers trade.
Let him talk.
So I'm recording that on Friday. So I'm really looking forward to that. So he just I want to talk to him because he was a prospect in the Dominican Republic. So he didn't all the way, but baseball's still a big part of his life. And so like I think he's in your neck of the woods there, Dave, in Houston.
Oh.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I think he runs a barber shop there and he's got his own cigar brand.
Hook me up, man. I freaking barbershops and cigar shops. So
there you go. Yeah. So I mean, he's probably at Astros games all the time. I think he's still in Houston, although he calls me with a New York number, but that doesn't mean anything anymore.
Nah.
Yeah.
But anywho, wherever you may be, make today count because it never comes again. Unless the Buddhists are right. Wait a minute, no, that's time travelers. I don't know. That was a good time for me to end. Bye, everybody.